r/Nosleep. Posted by you/helpcreepylandlady. Have you ever heard of a game called Relevancy? If you're a social media influencer or you spend a lot of time on the internet, you may have heard of an urban legend about a game called Relevancy. I must admit that, when my friend Andrea first told me about it over a year ago, I thought it must be some kind of joke at my expense. I've been trying to make it as a live streamer for the past 3 years and I have a modest following, so it stung to think that there was some important aspect of online culture that I wasn't aware of. To add insult to injury, my friend runs a popular vegan food blog and is far more successful than I am, so it felt like she might have been rubbing it in about how she's in the know and I'm not. You get the idea. When I told her that I didn't know what she was talking about, she gave me a once-over and arched her thick eyebrows. "You really don't know?" she said, and a prickly heat ran up my spine. We've been friends ever since 9th grade biology, when we were paired together and she handed me a pink beret because my fringe looked shabby. That was coincidentally the same day that she decided to stop eating meat, after throwing up all over the frog we were meant to dissect. I love her, but each year she finds fresh ways to test my patience. "You know, in the time you've taken to make me feel bad about this, you could have told me about the stupid game by now," I said, and I watched as her bright green eyes widened. Let her be offended. I was in the right. "Well, with that attitude, maybe I won't tell you about it at all," she said, crossing her arms. In the sunlight, they looked like two slender branches that had become entangled. "Fine, I don't care either way," I said with a shrug. Staring straight ahead, I could feel her eyes boring into the side of my face. With each step, her breathing sharpened, until she let out a short huff and stopped dead in her tracks. "Do you want to hear it or not?" Her voice rose and fell like the waves. I smiled. She was too easy. I nodded, and spent the next 20 minutes enraptured by what she told me. It seemed so real and tangible, yet there was just that hint of the unbelievable, the magical, that landed it firmly within the realm of urban legend. The name of the game is Relevancy. You don't get invited to play unless you meet specific criteria, and I mean very specific. You have to be an influencer of some description, you must have 10K plus followers on at least 2 of your social media accounts, you need to meet the beauty algorithm's standards of conventional attractiveness, and you have to be between the ages of 21 and 35. The list goes on, but these are the core requirements before you'll even be considered for a coveted place in the game. This isn't something you just can sign up for either. Each player in the game will have been hand-selected. Once you've been chosen, you will receive an email from a shadowy organization known only as the Agency, where you'll be asked to agree to the terms and conditions of the game. For the duration of the game, each participant will be paid $10,000 per day to cover their expenses and aid in promoting themselves. In exchange, the participant will be required to host a number of special events and contests dictated by the Agency. The participant agrees to do whatever the Agency asks of him/her throughout the entire duration of the game. Based on performance, participants will be eliminated from the game one by one, until a winner emerges. The winner will receive the full endorsement of the Agency. If the rumors are to be believed, all of your favorite YouTube stars and live streamers and bloggers were all once Agency winners. You know who I'm talking about. "How did you find out about all of this?" I asked, hungry for more details. Fantasy though it was, the thought of that kind of sponsorship made me dizzy with glee. Andrea's face lit up as she slipped a well-manicured hand into her jean pocket and produced her mobile phone. There was the satisfying click of her nails against the screen as she typed in her passcode. Her eyes darted back and forth as she swiped in a series of smooth gestures before holding the phone up to my face. It was an email. "You have been invited to take part in this year's game of Relevancy." "I got an invite," she said. When she was animated like this, her voice had a tinkling quality, like the chiming of bells. I took the phone out of her hand. "This has to be fake," I said, scrutinizing the email. A lump formed in my throat as I reached the bottom and saw that she had replied. She had agreed to join the game, without consulting me first. Without even breathing a word of it to me. "Don't be so jealous," she said, snatching the phone out of my hand. "Besides, I know it's real. I received the first payment today. I can show you my bank account if you still don't believe me." Whatever, I turned away as hot tears welled up in my eyes. I should be happy for her. Why couldn't I be happy for her? "Why can't you just be happy for me?" she said, flailing her branch-like arms in wild gestures of contempt. I pulled my hood up as the tears tracked their way down my face. I could taste the salt in my mouth, but I couldn't wipe them away, or else she'd know I was crying. "I thought you of all people would know how much this means." Her tone had softened, and there was a twinge of hurt, but forget about it. She took one last look at me, but I kept my face shielded behind my hood. I heard a sigh and the click-clack of her boots on the pavement as she walked away. The next day, I tried reaching out to her to apologize, but she wouldn't respond to my texts or pick up my calls. A month went by in this way. Each day that passed, I felt the guilt rise up inside of me like a cancer seizing at my heart. I followed her social media with a relentless fervor, keeping track on her every move, making sure she was okay. From what I could tell, she was having the time of her life without me. I noticed that her recipes had become more ambitious and increased in caliber. She must have been able to afford all of those fancy ingredients she had told me about now that she was part of the game. She wanted me to be happy for her, she thought of me as a close friend, but she didn't include me in the biggest decision of her life. As she climbed that gilded ladder, she wasn't going to give her oldest friend a leg up. Along with guilt, another emotion crept its way into my heart and seeped into every aspect of my being. It is grey night and it is monstrous. It gnawed at me day and night, until there was only a husk of me left. I would stare with dark-rimmed eyes into the glare of those screens until I saw the sunrise. That was until I saw her post about an upcoming live stream event. Andrea hated doing live stream events. She found them tacky. The event was called Fan Fight. It was a public event and I knew I had to join. I had to see Andrea again, even if I couldn't speak to her. I logged on that night and what I saw made me sick to my stomach. There was Andrea, her face caked in makeup, alongside some other influencer who I didn't recognize. She was in some kind of bizarre maid outfit that was so tight it looked as though parts of her body were caked in black tar. As she lifted a hand to wave at her followers, I saw the bony wrist and the veins like purple threads running down her fingers. "Hey there my little devils, are we ready to show our love for Miss Andrea?" she said in a sing-song voice, clasping her hands together. Her cheeks hollowed out as she smiled. Something was horribly wrong. Andrea would never address her fans as little devils. She would gag every time she heard someone address themselves in the third person. And what was she wearing? "I'm here with my bestest friend Kitty Cat Black for a bit of friendly competition." Her eyes flickered across the screen and, as they landed on a particular point, her smile dissipated. She shook her head to regain her composure and that grin cut across her face once again. "Now, we all know the rules," her friend, who was wearing what looked like a thrift store cat costume, chimed in. "You make a donation pledge based on something you want to see us do or say and, if we agree to it, you have to pay up bucko. Remember, no requests for us to take our clothes off. The one with the most money in the bank at the end of the stream wins the fan fight. Are we ready?" The pair of them nodded in tandem and there was a buzzing sound to signal that the competition had started. At first, the requests were mild. The bulk of them were for shoutouts to several fans, each time for chump change. It was once we reached the midnight mark that the suggestions began to get dark. "Suck on Kitty Cat's thumb. One pledge read. $50. I watched as Andrea giggled, her right eye twitching faintly. She wrapped her mouth around that fat thumb and her lipstick smeared as she made her way down to the base. "I want to see Kitty Cat slap herself in the face. $25. There was a loud smack. The skin on one side of the girl's face puckered red. $100 for Miss Andrea, but only if you eat one of Kitty Cat's chicken nuggets." With a trembling hand, Andrea pinched the nugget between her forefinger and her thumb. Lifting it off of the plate, she pressed it to her lips, winced, and forced it into her mouth. The sound of her labored chewing was unbearable. She paused for a moment before smiling at the camera, giving a thumbs up, and swallowing hard. The evening became a circus, with each act more degrading than the last. As it drew to a close, both women looked as though they had been hollowed out. "Miss Andrea, it seems that you're over $300 behind me," Kitty Cat Black said, "and with only 10 minutes left to go, you're going to need a miracle to catch up." Andrea's eyes were wider now. There was something visceral and animalistic about her reaction to what her co-star had just said. She wrung her pale hands together with such aggression that one of her nails snapped off. I had to do something. I typed out the message as fast as possible and clicked send. Kitty Cat Black let out a sharp gasp. "Miss Andrea, it seems miracles do come true. You've received a pledge for $500,2" she said, beads of sweat forming on her brow, "but all the pledge says is call me back. Do you know who it might be from?" "No," Andrea said, her tone hard. "No, you don't know her." "No, I'm not doing that." "Are you sure?" Kitty Cat Black's cheeks flexed as she smiled wider. "I said no." Andrea's gaze dropped to the floor and she waved at her co-star in a dismissive gesture. "All right, well it's your funeral." For a moment, Kitty Cat Black's mask faltered as she spoke. Straightening herself back up, she resumed her courtship of her fans until the livestream was over. For the last 10 minutes, Andrea did not speak or even look up at the screen. She knew she had lost. I stayed up for the rest of the night hoping that my phone would ring. It didn't. I woke up bleary-eyed the next day, wondering if the whole thing had been a dream. I pulled my phone close to my face to check if I had any missed calls when I heard a ping. Someone by the name of Tobias had sent me a video. I didn't know anyone with that name and I was ready to dismiss it as spam, but my curiosity overwhelmed me. I opened the message and there was Andrea, silhouetted in darkness. The video was only about a minute long. Even in that dim light, I could see the streaks in that thick foundation where tears had been. I could see her trembling hands and her bloodshot eyes. This is what she said. "Chelsea, you know I love you. I'm so sorry for not getting in touch sooner. This has all been so crazy. I wanted to reach out to you last night, but I couldn't risk having them find out about you and what you mean to me. I don't know what's going to happen to me, but I needed you to know that I love you so much and I want to see you again. I want everything to go back to the way it was. If they try to contact you, you have to ignore them. Delete the emails, go to the police, do what you have to do. Please trust me on this. God, I miss you." The last 30 seconds were made up of her sobbing before shutting off the camera. I must have watched that snippet of footage over 100 times, and each time it broke my heart. I went to her flat and started banging on the door. No answer. I called her mobile in loops, hanging up and redialing as soon as I reached voicemail. I managed to get in touch with her parents, but they hadn't heard from her since the previous night. I went to the police and they told me I needed to wait for 24 hours before filing a missing persons report. You best believe I was there the next day, bright and early, with my pen at the ready. I knew something wasn't right. I knew I had to see Andrea again. That was 1 year ago. No one has seen Andrea since that livestream event. A few months ago, I hosted a 24-hour stream where I played games with some other low-ranking influencers in order to raise money for a charity that helps the families of missing people. I don't know what possessed me to do this, but, during the stream, I spoke about my experiences with Andrea. About all of the hours I'd spent crying, tearing my hair out, begging the police to do more. It must have struck a chord, because most of Andrea's old followers migrated to my account, and many more came with them from who knows where. I now have a healthy following and am on track to making a career out of what I love. All it cost me was my best friend. I received an email today. There was no subject and no name attached to the address. When I opened it and read the first line, I felt a coldness rise through my body. You have been invited to take part in this year's game of Relevancy.